good evening, welcome, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are in the world. I know we've got some different time zones who are likely to be joining us right now. I am so excited to be bringing you the launch of Connections with Nature, 50 Moments of Meeting the World, our brand new book, which is now available to buy. And it's so exciting to actually be kicking things off this evening with a whole host of stuff for you. We've got some live music, we've got some poetry readings, we've got discussions on photography, we have some talks about how the book was put together, who we've worked with and how we've done it. And I'm just really proud to bring all this together this evening, as well as spotlighting and showcasing some of the important stories and real life issues that we have dealt with in this book through talking about our connections with nature. There is some great stuff in store, and I really hope that you can stick around with us, stay till the end, see these stories, feel a sense of what all of this is about, and really come together on this World Animal Day to really celebrate, be a part of, and enjoy our world's amazing gifts in what it gives us through our connections with nature, wildlife, and really meeting the world. Now I'd like to kick things off. We're really lucky to have had the support of Jonathan and Angela Scott. Jonathan and Angela are known as the Big Cat People, and they are famous for their work on the BBC series Big Cat Diaries, as well as the Animal Planet series Big Cat Tales. Jonathan was kind enough to write the foreword of our book, and this is Jonathan's own book here, The Big Cat Man. And so obviously he's no stranger to writing books. He's written many books over the years, along with Brian Jackman, books about the marsh pride and leopards that they've spotted and followed over the years. And Jonathan gave his time to write our foreword and is actually joining us tonight with a short message.
Hi Katie. You know, so many people talk and they think and they sit and they just never get round to following their bliss, to following their purpose in life. And it's so obvious that with you, you've created your own niche and you're really making a difference. And so what I would say is just keep doing what you're doing, keep reaching out, keep inspiring people, keep inspiring the next generation. Anyway, from Angie and myself here at home in Nairobi, but working our butts off, books, thinking about how we can convey that sacred nature message, and just try to reconnect people to the wonder of nature, just like you're doing. So from here in Nairobi on a beautiful sunny afternoon, it's goodbye from us, and just have a wonderful evening. Lots of love. Take care. Bye-bye.
If putting this anthology together has taught me anything, it's that connecting with nature is definitely a two-way thing. And as human beings, obviously we have a responsibility to the wildlife that we encounter, as much as we have the opportunity to enjoy it. Now certainly we have stories in here that relates to wildlife, big game and apex predators, including lions. And really we have to consider the lives and the livelihood of people who are tasked with guarding such species. And this kind of brings me to the point of the evening where I want to talk about one of the serious issues that's facing some members of our wildlife blogger crowd. We actually have several Maasai warriors who are part of the wildlife blogger crowd, and one such person is Jack, who's going to be speaking to you shortly through a series of videos about a project that he has been leading. But before we talk about that, I wanted to mention that this evening I have created an opportunity on my website where you can order the book to also order a copy to donate. So this is something that anyone can choose to do, and essentially these additional copies, as well as a handful of ones from myself, are going to be sent out to a Maasai school, courtesy of Jack, to reach children there who live alongside the great wildlife that we know and see and love. and perhaps aren't as aware of some of the stories that we have about what we have in our backyards in other places in the world, of sort of birding in Britain or backyard conservation in America and so on. And so this is a project that's really close to my heart, and if this is something that you would like to do, there is an option, as I say, on my website to buy a copy to donate to a Maasai school. So hopefully we can send a number of these copies out there to be enjoyed and read and appreciated as part of an education for young Maasai children who are going to grow up in that situation with those wildlife. As well as these copies of the book to donate to a Maasai school, we also have available over on kateonconservation.com and select the shop tab, or under the wildlifebloggercrowd.com, a range of merchandise for sale featuring the Wildlife Blogger Crowd logo. And that includes things like laptop stickers, which is like this one, as well as reusable metal water bottles and notebooks made from eco-friendly recycled materials, other items such as this, which will for tonight be used to raise money for a food relief program that Jack is in charge of. Now, this is essentially an emergency response to the COVID-19 crisis, which has left many members of the Maasai community affected by the lack of tourism and travel at the moment. Now, I'm not sure how it is in other places in the world, but from the UK where I am, Africa is still on the red list of travel. So obviously they've had a huge hit of the fact that people can't travel out there, which has really affected the livelihoods of these communities. On top of this, there was previous flooding, and now another sort of resurgence of COVID-19 spreading among the communities. And so Jack is heading up this project, which is raising money to deliver, and he is part of the team who deliver it, food parcels and emergency packages to people in these rural communities. I'm going to hand over to Jack now to show you some of the work that he's doing and explain a little bit more. But this is such a big and important thing, and I feel so passionately about it. So I want to remind that we are raising money through our merchandise to support and donate to this cause, and I will also be leaving a separate GoFundMe link available for you guys. I'm either going to put it on a slide here, or I'm going to leave it in the comments or on the description of this video if you're watching it back, but I will make sure that that link is available so that you can go ahead and donate. But like I say, I will also be using the Wildlife Blogger Crowd and our merchandise as a means to do this, because I think this is such an important cause that we really need to get behind to support those guardians of wildlife who are already in the midst of challenging times and already find themselves managing for us a lot of this wildlife that we love and want to protect. So I'm going to hand over to Jack now.
Hello, my name is Jack, and I'm the community aid worker and the director of the $1 million vegan food relief effort here in Kenya. Since the beginning of this pandemic, the Maasai Mara people of Kenya has been struggling to survive without tourists coming to their region, and now many families do not have food. The situation is critical, and I fear hunger and starvation will even kill more people compared to COVID-19. $1 Million Vegan has kindly donated 50,000 meals for us. I'm calling upon all of us, and even as an international, so that we can come together and help our people during this COVID-19 season. It is very sad that the COVID-19 is still increasing very rapidly, and the Maasai people are the most people who are taking care of the wildlife, and the stakeholders of the most iconic wildlife in Africa, including the elephants, the lions, the leopards, and the buffaloes, the giraffes. We host the big five, the small five, the shy five, and this is the most sensitive area, especially in East Africa, whereby the Maasai indigenous communities are taking care of this wildlife, both in the Maasai Mara National Reserve and also the Maasai Mara Conservancies. And we do not wish these people to turn back to poaching habits, or maybe participate in the charcoal burning businesses, which might lead to the destruction of the Maasai Mara beautiful natural forest.
Many people have commented on the amazing front cover of the book, and I must admit, I'm completely in love with how it looks. We were really fortunate to have in our collective, the Wildlife Blogger Crowd, Chloé Valerie Harmsworth, who is both a fantastic writer and also a fantastic artist.
There's so many amazing things in this book. Everyone is just so talented and so inspiring. So thank you. Thanks guys for letting me be part of your community, part of the Wildlife Blogger Crowd. And thanks to Kate for putting this absolute beauty together. I mean, it's stunning, and just seeing my artwork put on this and just so beautifully produced by Bradt Guides, Journey Books. It's such a privilege and an honour. So anyway, happy book launch everyone, and let's celebrate this stunning thing and get out into the world, and hopefully inspires more people to reconnect and connect deeply with nature. Thanks.
So I'd really like to talk to you about the process of putting connections with nature together as a book. Now obviously this is a self-published title, but I did go through a publisher's to sort of put the book together and do some of the design and also the printing. And it was really important to me to find the right publishers to work with that would carry the values and ethos of what the Wildlife Blogger Crowd stands for. It was not too hard for me, therefore, to choose Journey Books, which is an imprint of Bradt Guides, to be our publisher for the book. Now you can kind of see here I'm a bit of a fan of Bradt Guides books, and these are some of the titles from my own collection, and I think it's really nice to sort of see together here the various titles that really work well with what we've done and how we sit among them. So I have here The Big Cat Man, which I've mentioned earlier, is by Jonathan Scott, but Brad's also do a revised edition of The Marsh Lions, which is perhaps Jonathan Scott's most famous book. And this one, The Leopard's Tale, which apparently took 6 years to actually write and complete this book, just because it was so hard to see leopards at that time. We also have Christian the Lion. And Christian the Lion, this is a book that actually has a lot more unseen photographs and stories from the people who knew Christian. And anyone who knows the Born Free connection will understand why this is a book that I had to have in my bookshelf. But Christian the Lion was essentially a lion who was re-released back into the wild, having been owned as a pet. And perhaps if you maybe don't feel like you recognise him, there's a good chance that you have possibly encountered him online, because there's a very famous piece of footage in which Christian the Lion is reunited with his former owners after being released into the wild. And in this video that's now gone viral, you see him come and give a massive lion hug to those people there. And this book actually includes, like I say, never seen before photographs from that time, which is really cool. And we also have here A Cheetah's Tale by Princess Michael of Kent. And this guidebook here that's sort of centred around British wildlife that you can see in the summer. So it takes you through day by day the kinds of wildlife that you can see in the British Isles. And then lastly, perhaps what subconsciously influenced the anthology that we put together was this Beastly Journeys, Unusual Tales of Travel with Animals. And I say subconsciously because I didn't really spot it until I saw them next to each other. There's a real sort of synergy there, isn't there? And obviously as this focuses around travelling with animals, it was easy once we'd got this central theme of connecting with nature, you know, connections of nature and meeting the wild, to then kind of build the anthology that we have together. And yeah, so I think that kind of demonstrates the sort of titles that Bradt carries and why they're such a good fit for what we're doing. But I do have some information here from Bradt Guides themselves to sort of read to give you a bit more of a sense of who they are. So Bradt Guides was founded almost 50 years ago by Hilary Bradt when she wrote Backpacking Along Ancient Ways in Peru and Bolivia, which included the very first tourist information on walking the Inca Trail. The company quickly developed a reputation for covering places off the beaten track. Alongside this commitment to supporting regions that were traditionally overlooked by tourists, Bradt Guides also became known for its focus on wildlife and conservation, putting responsible travel at the heart of things a long time before it became mainstream in guidebooks. Hilary still claims to have written the first article in a newspaper championing responsible travel, and although that can't be verified, she has been awarded an MBE for her work in this area, and the equivalent of Madagascar's OBE, which the only other Westerner who has received that is David Attenborough. And in addition to thorough wildlife coverage in their destination guides, they also have a range of standalone wildlife guides. Their wildlife guides have showcased some of the best of those in writing about wildlife today. And alongside this, they've sought new writing talent through their annual travel writing competition, which is now part of the Edward Stanford Writing Awards. And then, of course, which brings us to today, they offer this contract publishing service, which is essentially Journey Books, which came in part because there are so many excellent pitches that they receive that they actually can't take on with their finite resources. And so this is a way for aspiring writers to get their work professionally published and distributed. And yeah, that's essentially what we've done here. So hopefully that sort of demonstrates a bit of the choices we made with the book. So I also think what is demonstrated through these titles and through many of our favourite nature books is the importance and value of photography in wildlife storytelling and nature storytelling, which is why I'd like to hand over now to one of the photographers who's featured in the book, and that is Steve Shand.
Hi, I'm Steve Shand. A connection with nature, to me, has always been something that's very important for all of us to have. Mine started ever since I was a child. My grandfather took me and showed me everything, all the animals, and got me to know about the land and environment. These are connections for me that have lasted all my life. I find a lot of solace in going out to take pictures and be in the environment. The images that I've got featured in the Connections with Nature book are a trio of swans and a mandarin drake. I'm very happy with both of the images. They portray something that I'm always looking for in an image, which is intimacy and something along the lines of moments that we don't always see, things that happen when we're not there. And I hope you enjoy them, so thank you very much.
One of the fun things about compiling a book such as this is that it includes a variety of different mediums of work. We have photography, artwork, poetry, written stories, nature diary extracts, and even song lyrics. I was really excited to be able to include my husband Nick Stephenson's work in this. He shared the lyrics of a couple of his songs, and he's actually going to sing them for us tonight. So I'd like to hand over to him to introduce his song, Forest Song.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nick Stephenson. I am a musician / singer-songwriter, as you can probably see from the guitar. I am also the proud husband of Katie Stephenson, who has put this wonderful new book together, Connections with Nature, 50 Moments of Meeting the Wild, which is a collection of pieces by the wildlife blogger crowd, her very own wildlife blogger crowd of course. And there's all sorts of wonderful stuff in here, including photography, poetry and some wonderful writing about nature and people's connection with it. I'm so proud to be included in this book. It's an absolute honour to have 2 of my songs in here, the lyrics to my songs that is, and I'm going to sing them for you now. As a songwriter, I've always had a deep connection with nature and been inspired by it as well, and certainly the songwriters that also sing about it, people like Nick Drake, Sandy Denny. So yeah, it's just wonderful to be in this book, and I'm going to sing you now a forest song, so I hope you enjoy it.
Desert sand.
song, Forest Song. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the event, and don't forget to get yourself a copy of Connections with Nature. Thank you.
Another of our fantastic supporters of the wildlife blogger crowd and also our book Connections with Nature is the wonderful Virginia McKenna. Virginia McKenna is well known for her role as Joy Adamson in the film Born Free, and she went on to co-found the Born Free Foundation. Virginia was kind enough to write the epilogue to our book, and it's amazing to read her words in this year of her 90th birthday.
Born free as the wind blows, as free as the grass grows, born free to follow your heart. Live free and beauty surrounds you. The world still astounds you each time you look at a star. Stay free.
For me, one of the most important things of putting this book together was to look at the different ways that connecting with nature can help us in our own lives. One such story comes from Steve Wood, backyard zoologist, who uses a method of harm reduction that's used in HIV prevention and substance abuse to look at a means of protecting one small thing at a time. In this instance, it's his backyard and his backyard wildlife that he's looking at through this lens. Another such important story comes from Joe Harkness, who is responsible for bird therapy, a concept and a book which help guide us through using bird watching and connecting with the world around us, ideally through looking at birds, their patterns of behaviour, perhaps listing birds, etc. Things like this that help to clear our mind and actually use birding as a form of therapy. Joe is going to talk us through his contribution to the book and what it means to him now.
Hi, first I should introduce myself before anything else. I am Joe Harkness. I'm one of the contributors to Connections with Nature, the anthology of writing, illustrations, poetry, all around connections with nature, put together by the wonderful and lovely Kate Stephenson, or Kate on Conservation as you may know her by her social media handles. I first met Kate, I think it was probably in 2019. And we'd known each other, if you truly know someone on social media, but we'd been in contact with each other. We'd spoken about mental health and nature. And she came to one of my talks at Pensthorpe in Norfolk, which is it's kind of like a bird reserve and family attraction, but it's a really, really beautiful place. And they were running a bird fair. Kate came to see me after I did a talk, and I was signing some books, and we ended up having a really long chat about mental health and nature connection, bird watching, etc. And she's just really lovely person, and it was really nice to chat to her, and obviously we stayed in touch. And when Kate approached me and said she was putting this together, what I really liked about the whole concept was the fact that she was bringing together writers and illustrators and other people in the kind of conservation world, if you like, who were, I don't want to say marginalised, but like those less popular voices. And that's really important to me because, as I'll talk about in a minute, nature connection is a special thing, which I've written about at length, but it's also something that I find can be quite elitist at times. And so for Kate to sort of tell me straight away that she was putting together something for those people that don't always get a voice, I was like, yeah, I'm really up for this. And I found some old blogs that I'd written about when I first became a father. And it was after Bird Therapy had been published, and I'm really open about the fact that I don't really like my book for various reasons, and those blogs that I'd written were a lot more true, I think, to like my inner voice, and so to get those out in print is like a mega thing for me. I'm really proud, and obviously, like I said, just helping someone who's always been so kind and generous and positive is win-win as far as I'm concerned. I just want to say, like, the reason why I'm sitting in front of a whiteboard flanked by semi-inspirational quotes is because I'm still at work, and that's kind of the reason why I can't do the live event tonight. I have very minimal time for like this side of stuff, unfortunately, because I work in education full time and in school leadership, and it's like stupidly busy. So I'll be at work late tonight, and by the time I put my daughter to bed, who you'll read about in the book when you have your hands on it, yeah, I won't be able to come along, which is really sad. But I want to just say a few things about nature connection, not the book specifically, but the concept. So when I wrote Bird Therapy, I actually wrote a chapter about connecting with nature, because it's one of these 5 ways to well-being, which I turned into the 5 ways to well-birding as part of the book. One of the things I did was write I used a definition from, I believe, Oxford Dictionary, about what connection actually means. So to connect is to form a relationship or feel an affinity. Its secondary part of the definition that I used was to join together so as to provide access and communication. There's some really key words there with regards to this book, what Kate's trying to achieve with it and what it means to connect with nature. So there's the whole forming of a relationship. We have an intrinsic relationship with nature. We are part of nature, but we also develop those kind of niche networks within our own interests. So like, I've got really into moth trapping this year as an extension of my already held interest in bird watching and some other forms of wildlife engagement. And I think that forming a relationship is a really important thing. And I'm really looking forward to reading some of the other takes on that side of nature connection, as well as the concept of feeling an affinity. I think we should feel part of the natural world. We are part of it, part of the ecosystem, part of the world. And I think to feel an affinity with other people who are like-minded, but also to be included in this project and feel affinity with people who don't always get those opportunities is sort of combined with the kind of work that I do, where I am now, is really humbling and vitally important in breaking down barriers, something I also believe really strongly about. And so, yeah, that second part of that definition is to join together, so to provide access and communication. Nature is accessible for all, but unfortunately, it's difficult to find fully accessible nature reserves. It's difficult to find truly wild places that are truly accessible. And I think the way that we communicate to other people about nature connection is just as important as physical accessibility. If we can provide I wanted to say like a mental access, but that probably isn't the right way of putting it, an emotional access, I guess, to nature for other people with our enthusiasm, our knowledge, our thirst for the natural world.
Thank you so much to Joe for sharing those words there. I did briefly mention in the introduction to Joe there that another of our contributors to the book, Steve Wood, the backyard zoologist, uses a similar kind of concept to engage with nature as a means or a form of therapy and better well-being and living. So I'm really happy to hand over to Steve now to tell us a bit more about his contribution to the book.
Hey, it's Steve Wood, the backyard zoologist, and I am chapter 18 in Connections with Nature. I want to thank Kate for including me in this project. It's really, really awesome. I have an Instagram page and a Facebook page called The Backyard Zoologist, where I'm cataloging local wildlife. I live in an area called Tully, New York, which is about 15 minutes south of Syracuse. As you can see, it's very rural. It's mountainous, lots of forests. And I've been cataloging all the things that live around me on Instagram and educating the community about them. And someone had said to me, I really like what you're doing with backyard conservation. And I thought, well, that's a new topic to me. I never thought about that. But I thought, how can we do this? What is backyard conservation, and how can I participate in that? Now, I worked in communicable disease for years and years and years, particularly around HIV and substance use and things like that. And we have a methodology called harm reduction, which is the one thing you can do to protect yourself is better than doing nothing at all. So out of the next 10 times you partake in risky behavior, try once to not put yourself at risk, and then work your way up to being less risky. And I thought we can apply that methodology to conservation, and I can apply it right here in my backyard. So clean the space up. I keep 1 acre in use where we have a yard, gardens, me and the pups run around and have a great time. But the other 5 acres that I have, I leave wild. I let the trees grow up, the bushes grow up, and things like that. I do composting. I do gardens of native plants, which I think is very important. You want to research what your native plants are in your area and encourage their growth, because that's what your local pollinators utilize, and then everything else that utilizes the pollinators for food are going to be coming in as well. But we can use that harm reduction methodology to increase the health of the planet, just as we did back in communicable disease to increase the health of the community. So I would love it if you would follow along with me on Instagram or on Facebook. It's The Backyard Zoologist, and pick up a copy of this book because it's awesome and there's some great stuff in there. And thank you very much.
Some of you have already received pre-release copies of this book, and those that have may have read already in the preface of the book that the first £100 of sales from the book will go towards buying an acre of land through the Wildland Trust, named after the wildlife blogger crowd, and to contribute to some of their amazing projects that involve protecting the rainforest and closing corridors for wildlife and animals to move between. On this World Animal Day, I'm really happy to talk a bit more about that project and why we're supporting it.
How do you know where you are unless you know where you've come from? People began to notice that individual species of animals and plants, but mostly animals, were becoming rarer and rarer. And a group of naturalists and scientists and administrators got together and started the conservation movement. And the emphasis in those days was very much on species. And the people then said, we must do something about it, very commendably. But what did you do? Well, the initial reaction, believe it or not, was to find the survivors and put them in zoos. Looking back at it now, perhaps it wasn't as sensible as we all thought then. You realized that actually you couldn't just take them from a zoo pen and put them out into the wild world, because they didn't know about the wild world, and they didn't know how to survive. And anyway, people were beginning to get a little more sophisticated about what conservation meant. It wasn't about just one species, however charismatic it might be. It was, to use a word that was surprisingly less familiar than it is today, it was about ecosystems. And they discovered that some species could be conserved in a quite small area, but other species required huge areas. So again, there was a subtle shift. A shift to realize that if you wanted to conserve the world, and to conserve the species that were in it, you had to take a big section of land. The conservation was about planet, wild areas of the planet. If you're going to conserve nature, you have to conserve the whole community. And within that community, a strange, powerful animal called Homo sapiens. That too had to be thought about and catered for. And it didn't matter whether people on the other side of the earth were simply prepared to give money, if in fact the people themselves living on these lands, living alongside the creatures that we were so concerned about, weren't aware of what was going on and weren't in sympathy with what was going on. And it was at this point that the World Land Trust, with John Burton, began to formulate important ideas. And so the notion grew that not only would we raise money, the WLT would raise money, but it would also raise expertise to help people with conservation knowledge gleaned from all around the world to solve those conservation problems. But the people, the indigenous people, the local people, were central to all this. WLT now is a major factor in many parts of the world, channeling funds and help and expertise into those areas where they are so badly needed, but leaving the ultimate control in the people who live on that land 365 days of the year. Conservation has been transformed. WLT is at one of the cutting edges of that transformation. If there is one shaft of light and hope in looking ahead at what's going to happen, it is, in my view, that which you see when you see the history of our World Land Trust and the generosity which people who help World Land Trust have helped it to spread its influence worldwide.
It's really exciting to know that actually the outcome of selling these books will be to protect an acre of the rainforest. We all know the value of trees, which is why I'm excited to hand over to Nick Stephenson to play us another song, this one called Shining Trees.
Something on the telly made you cry, and I don't even think I'd like to know. Is it all about your fantasies, lying on a bed under shining trees? Oh, it's so crazy that beauty can look that way, and the emotion comes out when the news kicks in. That you fought so hard to win. Back to the shining trees. Back to the shining trees. Something in the music made you dance. Dance like a child of grace. Walk away, it's okay. You can fly away, fly away. Oh, but it's so crazy that beauty can look that way. And the emotion comes out when the news kicks in. Call back the back to the shining trees, back to the shining trees.
So I've been showing this evening some of the books that members of our community and contributors to our anthology have produced. You've seen on the table Joe Harkness' Bird Therapy, Virginia McKenna's Life in My Years, and also The Big Cat Man by Jonathan Scott. Some other members of our community, and certainly those who've contributed to our book, also have their own publications out. And I'm hoping that if you're here watching this book launch this evening, you probably are a lover of books, like me, who has among my giant collection of books some of these incredible titles from our Connections with Nature's contributors. So first up we have Food You Can Forage by Tiffany Francis Baker, which is a fantastic book for new foragers, experienced foragers, you know, anyone who's interested in getting outside, connecting with nature and connecting that in with eating and food. Another of Tiffany's titles that is one of my favourites on my bookshelf is Dark Skies. And it's a fantastic read and a journey into both Tiffany's life as a nature and wildlife lover, but also into the night itself. Alongside that, I also have Rain Before Rainbows by Alicia Hayden, who, this is actually a collection of her poetry, and it's a stunning little read, and it's been released to help raise funds for the Tiddlywinkle's Hedgehog Foundation. But Alicia actually wrote for Connections with Nature the piece Moorland Fairground, which isn't poetry but is so evocative in the way that it's written, and it almost is this painting with words. We also have Naturally Connected by Barry Madden, which, as you can imagine, fits perfectly in with our Connections with Nature theme. Barry's book is also self-published, so I know he understands firsthand the amount of time and effort and energy and work that goes into publishing a book. And this one is actually completely stunning with its use of photographs actually throughout the whole book, as well as its very personal storytelling from Barry. I loved the way that in our Connections with Nature book, Barry really kind of evokes this idea of logging off from the computer and going out there into the world. But of course, a lot of how we came together as a community at the Wildlife Blogger Crowd is through the connections that we make online. And it's interesting to kind of bring that back around and think about connecting to the internet, connecting with each other on social media, and then connecting with nature through our connections with each other. This really is this complete sort of network. I briefly wanted to mention as well, on the subject of online and blogging and connections, I actually had my own book published last year, which is more like a personal copy, but it's my Shamwari diaries. It came from my written diaries of when I spent time volunteering at Shamwari Game Reserve in South Africa with the Born Free Foundation. And I obviously wrote up this diary handwritten, turned it into a blog series, the Shamwari Diaries, which can be found on my blog, and then turned it back into a book so that it's there and tangible in real life. It brings me kind of nicely onto my volunteering time and days with Born Free, which has allowed me to meet other members of this community, mostly online, who are fighting for the same causes and reasons. And I think it's really important to think back to that on this World Animal Day, about the care and the real protection and conservation of wildlife that we kind of need in this world. And one of the people whose book is not here, but who has a published book and is featured in our anthology, is someone who is author of the book Dreaming in Calcutta and the Channel Islands. And he's actually joining us from India with this message now.
Hello Kate, this is Shubhobroto Ghosh speaking from New Delhi in India. It has been my absolute delight to contribute to your book Connections with Nature, and as you know, my work has principally been focused on captive animals in zoos and in captive situations in India and beyond. And I have also been able to visit facilities in England as well. And both of us, we have a sense of admiration and share a great sense of respect for Virginia McKenna for her work with zoo animals in England. And indeed, I was able to interview her very comprehensively 2 years ago. And also, I have been able to visit and study at one of the world's best zoos, and indeed one of the world's most well-known zoos in the Channel Islands, Jersey Zoo, created by the British author and naturalist Gerald Durrell. And I have also been able to host and interview his wife, Lee Durrell, in India. I very much look forward to reading this book, and I am actually very, very happy that you've been able to achieve this, because as for me, I want to raise compassion for the plight of hybrid animals which are abused in zoos, which are killed in zoos, and I want to actually raise a new consciousness on the treatment of hybrid animals in zoos and the new understanding of what it means to be a species and how fertile hybrids actually challenge the entire species concept, so that no hybrid animal which is healthy, or indeed any animal which is healthy, or any animal which has a genetic makeup which is of mixed origin, is never discriminated upon in any captive situation. So I have been able to write about this in my submission for your book, based on some experiences I have had with hybrid animals. And I also want to thank you for understanding the enormous cruelty that is involved in pure silk production, that entails the killing of hundreds and thousands of silkworms and silk moths to produce pure silk garments for fashion, which is tantamount to vanity. And there is also a lot of child labor which is involved in the production of pure silk. So I would very much like your help and support in raising awareness on this cruelty involved in pure silk production, which is also written about in my essay for your book, so that people stop wearing pure silk and start wearing other humane alternatives like cotton and chiffon and other humane products which are not produced by killing silkworms and silk moths and abusing children. And I hope that through your personal example, Kate, you can also provide a very good example as an influencer by not wearing pure silk and promoting other humane alternatives to pure silk and other cruel fashion products. I chose to speak and write about pure silk because compared to fur and leather, awareness on cruelty involved in pure silk production is very low. So once again, congratulations to you for bringing out this book, and my hearty congratulations and thanks to all the contributors from across the globe who have contributed to this book. And I am very much looking forward to understanding and reading their experiences in contributing to this book and their connections with nature. And I hope that my contributions on captive animals and pure silk production will help to make my perspective on compassion to animals reach a wider audience, and that we can together make this world a more compassionate and kinder place. Thank you very much, Kate, and all the contributors. All the best. Take care.
As our launch evening is drawing to an end, I'd really like to hand over now to Chloé for one of the more poignant pieces in the book that really kind of challenges us to look at the closing of a lifetime and what it's like to have carried nature with us our whole life through.
When I Finally Leave This Place by Chloé Valerie Harmsworth. When I finally leave this place that has held me for so long, will I be a bird of grace or be a bird of song? Will I be suspended in the air so out of reach? And when my time is ended, will your call succeed my speech? Shall my feet transform to claw, my blue eyes pale to white? Will I embody what I adore with wind my new delight? Shall my nose and mouth remould as beak, my skin and hair convert to feather, my eyes sharpen for mammals I seek, connected to sky forever? A symbol of strength I would become, restored from distant history, a rare sight now known by everyone, if you became me. Your shape has brought me endless joy, as well as awe and wonder. So when my body begins to cloy and it's time to leave it under, perhaps my soul will rearrange my form as I've described, and I won't find it hard or strange to leave the soil to which I'm tied. And finally I will leave this place, shedding my worthless fear, and love and hope with it replace, with you, my friend, quite near.
Thank you so much to Chloé for that lovely reading there. If you've stayed with us this evening, thank you so much for joining us, sticking with us and supporting the book that we have available to buy now. I'm so excited to have put this together and to have used this evening to showcase not only the work and the writing of the Wildlife Blogger crowd, but also some of the amazing talents and the amazing stories that we have in amongst our midst. So thank you for everyone who's got behind this, and please do buy a copy of the book. And if you want to follow us and support more of what we're doing, look out for the Wildlife Blogger crowd. We are on Facebook, Twitter. We're on Twitter. We are at Wildlife Blogs. We're on Instagram's Wildlife Blogger crowd, and you can find us over at kateonconservation.com underneath Wildlife Blogger crowd on the tabs, or at wildlifebloggercrowd.com. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care.